Shri Lord Shiva Bhagavati Shri Ma Durga Bhagavati Shri Hare Rama Bhagavati Om Shri Hare 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 Om Shri Hare 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 Shri Hare Krishna Bhagavati Shri Siddhartha Bhagavati.
All right. Can I get a quick sound check? Can you introduce yourself? Tell me where you're from.
Can I introduce my first one? Okay, so I believe you are having an interview with me today on health, about health. And I liked it because it was not specifically about physical health. I'm not the most physically healthy. Everyone here is much more healthy than me physically. But I felt what was appealing about your approach was it was much broader, or in any case you wanted to ask someone like myself about health, and so I was very much attracted to that because I could speak about what I would call true health, which is health of being, health of spirit, health that comes from self-knowledge and so on. So,
can you elaborate a little bit on that? What is the difference between healthy being and being physically healthy?
Okay, this is just my own terminology and the way in which I interpret that. Oh, you want me to repeat the question?
No, just go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. I thought you were doing a sound.
You already,
so
yeah.
we already
we just went right into it.
Okay. You ask what is the difference between, healthy living at a physical, in its physical aspect, and is there another aspect of health beyond, say, its physical connotations or something? For me, real health would be to be in total harmony or alignment with your inmost being. And that would be health for me. Physical health plays a part, and is a very important part, is the most popular. Even when we speak about yoga, most people, certainly in the West, that they would feel that yoga is a kind of more to do with physical asanas or postures and stretching and all of these things. No? But the term yoga is much broader than the physical definition of yoga, the physical aspect of yoga. Yoga means to bring together into unity two things. You see? So it already starts on the premise that there are two things to be brought together. It does not say there is only one thing that appeared to have become two and then reintegrate itself into its original oneness. You see, and yoga has many different aspects. There are aspects of yoga like karma yoga. We might have heard of this, which primarily is about selfless activity. There is Gyan yoga, which is the yoga of knowledge or perfect wisdom. This is expressed in the form of self-knowledge, and the emphasis is on self-inquiry, to look into one's inner nature like this. There is Bhakti yoga, which means the yoga of devotion, surrender to the Supreme Being. And then there is the yoga like we know or hear of, Iyengar, Ashtanga yoga, these yogas which are more popularly, people more in the West are more familiar with that form of yoga. But the question was about health, and in our concept, primarily in the West, yoga or health is about our physical health, physical well-being. And people do a lot of exercises, make sure that they are taking the right kind of food. There's a lot of information available about how to live healthily from the physical aspect of our life. But let's imagine someone who was physically very healthy, ate well, exercised well, in the prime of their physical life, but inwardly was very, say, depressed or have self-destructive tendencies. Because these kind of paradoxes are there. There are people who are very physically fit, very physically healthy, but inwardly unhappy, very much introverted and dark even, you see. So I could not say that such a person is in full health. They may be able to do handstands on one finger, but that would not amount to health for me. Health would have to be that someone internally also is fit, a mind that is, I would say, calm and clear and wise. Someone whose way is still inwardly, loving, open, kind. I would include these also in health.
You talked about selfless acts as being the foundation of karma yoga. Mm-hmm. How can you, when the mind is constantly playing tricks on you and constantly rationalizing and justifying actions and labeling them as selfish, but they're really selfish, how can you really determine if something is truly selfless?
It is very difficult to determine, even in one's own self, much less others, you see, whether something is truly selfless. And by selfless we have to say, because some people are not familiar even with the term selfless, it means to not be concerned, not to be psychologically self-conscious of how you're coming across and how well you're doing, and if you're being perceived by others to be kind or not. So we can put that out there like this. How can we be clear, how can we be sure that our actions don't contain a kind of selfishness, or we have a selfish motive behind our seemingly unselfish and kind and compassionate gestures? I would say on the whole, for most human beings, and we'll come to this question more, but I'll hint at it now, we are highly involved with our own identity, and that itself leads to a kind of selfishness. We are so insular, so much myopic meaning that we're only self-referencing, and we are brought up, many of us, to appreciate acts of kindness and so on, and we like to be kind ourselves, but very often genuine kindness is rare, meaning that someone gives without any motive, without any sense that they want something in return, even a thank you even. So they're quite someone who gives in the dark, from the dark, just give without needing to show their face and so on. There are many people like that also, but by far not the majority. No? Most people want to be appreciated, so when they do something that is felt to be kind, they want people to know that it's kind. Even people who pray, sometimes they want to pray that people see them praying and how expressive we can pray and so on. So this is very, very difficult one.
So if someone was like, does someone have to tune in? Do they have to stop and think? Do they have to stop and feel? Like, how can they say, wait a second, that's really selfish. I may be pretending to be nice or doing this, but I'm actually trying to just feed my ego.
They know it. It's only a question of whether you're open enough to admit it. I think we know. I don't know if we give enough time to reflect upon that, or if it matters enough for us to stop and ponder about it. We know like that. If you have issues of self-importance, any kind of ego, it will be very, very difficult to perform a selfless action.
And because all of us are tainted with at least just a little ego, if you know it, if you force a selfless act just because you know it is selfless, and is that healthy? Is that a good way to start the momentum of building the process of selfless behavior?
if it starts at the place where, say, it's in response to a genuine need. Suppose someone collapses in the street, an elderly person, or even a young person collapses in the street, and then you may feel to go over, and your reflex is, say, to go. It may not be for some people a reflex. They may stop and think, even though there's no threat to them at all. You see, they may still stop, and if you have a kind of suspicious mind, you may still think, maybe it's somebody's faking that they've collapsed, so that when I get close, they'll mug me or something. You see, it depends how much fear is in the mind also, you see. But let's take it another step, that it has happened before, where you may respond to an obvious need for help. Say someone has collapsed in the street there, and you go over to help them, and say they are smelling of alcohol and looking, and then also sometimes your mind may give you a lot of trouble, then people might think, I am drinking with them, they're my friend, and so on. So we have a lot of complexities about this, you see. And then sometimes you genuinely respond to a call for help or a need to assist, and then it seemed it was very spontaneous, and then your mind says, aha, you were very good, yeah, very good. Look how many people saw you, 2 or 3 stars in your crown today.
So does something like that negate the selflessness of it? Does it then become a selfish act?
I don't want to, no. If it is happened spontaneously, that action in itself is pure. Where people have difficulty is in the reaction that comes from the mind, when the mind starts to come and give some summarization of what you've done and so on. They have a lot of trouble with that, and it's very, very difficult to avoid that. And some people, in the end, they say, I don't want to do anything like this because my mind gives me a hard time after that.
So what is I think most people have that post-event, post-situation analysis and interpretation and summarization. What's the best way to treat that voice? What's the best way to treat that summary? To ignore it?
To not listen to it as much.
Can you...
To recognize, to discern that the action in itself was good. Assistance was rendered to someone. It was appreciated. That was fine. Everything is fine about that. And don't give up, because it is the ego that attacks, but it is the ego that is attacked also. If you understand this thing, then you can say, okay, mind plays these kind of games, and you disregard it. Don't do too much self-analysis about it, and just get on with your life. Leave it behind.
You talked briefly about fear, or you mentioned fear, like helping someone in the street, and you could get these fears. What is because I think that's ultimately what we're trying to get past. Where our own fears of failure, our own fears of looking like a fool, our own fears of embarrassment, all those fears. What is the best way to deal with those sensations and emotions as they're arising in the moment?
I have to be upfront about it. That we can do small things. There are exercises we can do and so on. They will help.
Can you start to deal with fear? Sorry about that.
Oh, yes. Okay. What would happen if, say, in response to a cry for help, or a situation where assistance is deeply required or something, you participate in that, or you're pulled to do this, but then fear arises inside that, maybe I'll be attacked by this person who I'm trying to help, or maybe other people might take advantage, or whatever the things the mind play. How to go past this? How does one deal with that? Generally, I would say it is very. There are exercises that can assist you to do this. There are many people who are giving certain kind of training like that. But I have to come straight away and say that all difficulties that we experience, whether it is a fear of rejection or the fear of the lack of appreciation, or whether we are worthy enough, or whatever, all these, all different shades of fears and anxieties, they come to us because we are not actually sitting in our true place, and we are living from a place of a very wrong identity, limited identity, actually. We live primarily in the notion of merely being our body-mind and conditioning. And that is not our true self. It is a limited portrait of our completeness. And so because we live in this very narrow, limited state, then all of these idiosyncrasies and strangencies, they come with that state. And in a deeper level, I like to introduce that. In a deeper level, what it means is that because we don't get it right at this level, and I think it is good that we don't get it right at this level, because our failure at this level to find that complete state, it stimulates an urge to go more deeply into exploring into our nature. If our projections, our idea of who we are in this limited portrait was true, we would not grow. There has to be some aspiration. And aspiration is born out of suffering and difficulties also like that. So the deeper question and quest would be a real search for completeness, which you will not find simply by having a healthy body. It's a good start, it is helpful, but it is not enough by itself. It would have to be something internal. You'll have to go back again to the source of what it is that we are, and not just understand it intellectually, but to really experience that directly. From there, then things will begin to come very, very right.
That's probably the next two perfect questions. What are we? What is the source of what are we trying to get to? And obviously intellectual understanding is so much different than direct experience, because one is...
You ask, what are we trying to get to? Well, actually, whether we are conscious of it or not, our urge is for lasting happiness, for peace, for harmony, actually. But not being aware of that consciously, we go about of it in search of this in so many different ways, and externally through relationships, through sport, through so many different activities. And we have to go through them, and then eventually to discard them, to say, well, it's not that, it's not lasting. The lasting peace, because it is instinct in us to search for lasting peace, or a joy that is unbroken, a happiness that doesn't fade. There's a pulse inside the human spirit, not just human spirit, but all sentient beings, a search for life, a clinging to life. And some of us intuit somehow that life should be eternal. It has to be at some level, eternal or timeless or something. And this is the drive, the urge, the desire for life, in fact, is in search of something that is that doesn't fade. First, we try through the senses and the things that we imagine, through sport and through relationships and so on like this. And we come to see that we gain experience, but everything fades, like clouds passing in the sky. They come and go. Everything is coming and going. So at some point, the question does arise, and very often, very naturally, at some stage, if your seeking is earnest, life brings it to you, life arranges it for you, that you will come to the next opportunity, and it will be introduced to you consciously. You see that. So it may happen through some encounter with someone. It could even happen through an accident. You may just fall off your bike or something, and it shakes something up deeply enough to stir up some deeper questions in you. Or you may find a change in your inner environment, the way in which you feel and think is beginning to change. And the steps roll on in front of you like that, So, at the heart of even when we experience fear in life, it stimulates a deeper yearning to go beyond fear and to find that place of total rest within us. Most human beings are not aware that such a thing exists even. We have only tasted it in momentarily, but in unfadingly, few have experienced this.
What do you think prevents people from that experience, that self-awareness? What prevents the light bulb from turning on, from that moment of mindfulness, that disconnection from the conditioned behavior?
We can offer different answers for this. You ask what is it that can help to trigger a longer lasting, if not eternal or permanent, recognition of our highest state of being. What gets in the way of that? The consciousness that we are temporarily is wearing this garment of a form, I would say like this, a biological suit for a while, if you're going to wear it. And in that expression of life, it will learn what it needs to learn through this body, like that. But it also must go through the experience of believing that it is the body for a while, and that it is the conditioning or the programming that happens inside that body. Only later to then come to a deeper realization that that is insufficient, it's inadequate, it is not true, because these are qualities and objects that are fading and changing. And it intuitively know that there's something beyond this. So that search is actually being driven by a deeper, maybe subconscious or an unconscious force that drives us to not abandon seeking, in fact. But life is also seeking. What stops or prevents this switching on of the light of awareness, you may say, of pure self-awareness or something? It can't be put in any kind of mechanical terms. I can say that as soon as we began to function in terms of a human being and identity and the body and the life force and so on, we became addicted to experiencing. We totally love experiencing. We can't give it up on every level, even the painful is part of the total dynamics of the field of experiencing, and we totally love it. And then we believe it also. The information that comes through the senses and the mind, and we get very entangled in that. And yet, the reality in us is quite apart from that. It allows a certain amount of identification to arise from itself, and that identification that arises from itself plays as the sense I inside this body. When you feel the sense I, because everyone refers to themselves as I. It is the most important word in any language, the feeling of I and what it represents. Nobody gave it to you. The world and your parents may teach you every other word, but nobody gave the word I to you, the sense I. It is intuitively arising with consciousness, and its implication, it indicates consciousness. I is consciousness. But when consciousness is experiencing through this body, something it is compelled for a while to identify with the body and say, I am the body. Now this I am the body belief gives rise to a second name, and that is the given name you take from your family. George, Michael, Luke, Mooji, or whatever, is the second name, and that really refers more to your person. I really refers to the presence, because how we know ourselves, even before being taught anything else, is through your intuitive awareness that you exist. And this I exist feeling or sense in us arises as the feeling I am. And that I and amness, that is our beingness, that is our consciousness. That's what we are, actually. But that consciousness gets in some way transformed or converted into the notion of a person, which is a contraction of it. It is a limitation of that. But the consciousness lives for a while in the notion of being a person for some time, until it is mature enough to begin to inquire into its original nature. Like that. So while we are in the state of identity as a person, it is a very complex state, a very intense state, full of friction and anxieties, because it is not a stable state. But it is designed to not be stable, because its very instability provokes a search for what is stable. And this is the carrot in the life, because you have to always be aspiring in order to evolve and to mature.
You talked about experience, that we're constantly seeking experience, and the way you describe it, it makes it sound like an addiction. And for lack of a better, I think that's what it is. We're addicted to experience. We're addicted to this swaying. Does that consequentially mean that the way out or the way through is painful and through suffering to avoid those addictive and behavioral and conditioned tendencies?
Pain is one of the avenues. Suffering is one of the opportunities, let me put it like this, whereby consciousness begins to, sort of contemplate itself. No? Because pleasure by itself does not promote introspection. No? So often difficult, challenging situations and so on, they trigger more reflective and meditative qualities within ourselves. I lost your question a bit.
I was just asking if pain and suffering are essential components of enlightenment.
Pain and the suffering are essential components in life. They have to be there because they generate and promote, evolution and maturity in sentient beings. It has to be there, but it's not the only thing that's there. Also joy and certain factors which play in us, which are untraceable. We cannot really go to the trace of them. They just seem to be there, and they vary from body to body. They express themselves in lesser or greater proportion. You see, we cannot really quantify or qualify where they come from. We can just say that if you take a group of 100 beings randomly, you'll find that there are different states of mind and different states of maturity towards self-knowledge, naturally. But everyone will have a certain amount of experience and a certain amount of wisdom. Some may, for a while, believe themselves to be wise merely because they use the mind a lot and think a lot. But when you use the word wisdom, it really refers more to that knowledge based upon experience and insight. And these are powerful powers and abilities within the human psyche that are not so deeply explored, and especially in our Western lives so much. Meditation, inquiry, and faith and trust, all these aspects of human expression.
What is advice for people that need to have a healthier relationship with that inevitable pain and suffering in life? Is there a healthy way to manage it? Is there a healthy way to deal with it?
The healthiest way, I can tell you, is to become silent and empty. It's not immediately appealing to the mind because we are sort of used to going to get tools to fix things. So we have really lost out on the opportunity and the guidance to become inwardly silent and empty, because our outer coaching and conditioning does not put much value on, say, meditation or on stillness. We put a lot of value on time and money, but on silence and peace and emptiness, we rarely talk about that. We're even a little bit scared about it, even uncomfortable about it. And yet in each one, at some point in your day, you have to go to this place of total emptiness. You can say thank God for sleep, because it is life, nature. God gives you that opportunity for 8 hours, almost as full as your waking hours, to be completely nobody and to be completely empty of intention, of identity, of activity, all of that. And guess what? If we have to guess, we all love it. We love to be here for these hours, sometimes 8 hours, some for people 10 hours, to be nothing and nobody and have no job, have no association. In your waking state, you might be a husband or an engineer, but in deep sleep, you're nobody. You may have 10 children in your waking state, but in deep sleep, you're nobody. You have no one. You're not even you don't have. And we don't go into that state screaming, oh, please don't let me go there. No, we totally love it. We buy the best bed to ensure that we can forget about everything. So if we do that unconsciously or compelled by nature, we can also enjoy some of that state in the waking state also. I don't mean that you're walking around snoring. I'm saying that, there's still a silence in us that is there in deep sleep, that is also present in our waking state. And as we get more, this is where meditations and this type of guidances help human beings to be aware of themselves as consciousness rather than merely as bodies. Not only as a body and not only as personality, but also as consciousness. And the more we discover this field of infinite potential in ourselves, the more it doesn't lead to us becoming, we have so much more to do. In fact, you feel I have so much more to be. I just am. The feeling of amness is the most powerful discovery in the human kingdom.
Fantastic. What do you think when you say, because this is a quote you said, you are living a dream. What do you mean by that statement? You are living a dream.
I rarely utter this type of thing, and not just publicly. I would not say just to someone regularly off the street, you're living a dream. They would not know what we're talking about. You see? So it would be a very, very silly and unfair, and also people would not comprehend what you're talking about. Sometime in life we're joking, we say, you're dreaming, man. So we understand like this, we play. We don't go much more deeply into that. But the fact is, there's a lot of truth in that. If I say the world is a dream, I don't mean that, I'm looking at these flowers, they are a dream in this kind of way. Let them be as they are. What it means that we are dreaming is that we are not suffering from the world in its natural manifestation. Things are neither good or bad, they just are there. That's not the world we experience, though. Our experience of the world is our psychological approach to life. Our judgments and anxieties, visions and fears, our attachments and so on. That's what we're experiencing like that. And in each unit of consciousness, if you take a body to be a certain mindset, will determine the strength of our experiencing. If you are someone who is very, very much full of judgments towards others, then the way that you experience life that's going to have a strong effect upon how you experience your existence. And so from the totality perspective, what you are experiencing is not true. It's not truth. It might be true that that's how it feels for you, but it's not truth that it can be relied upon, because if something is true, it has to be true for everyone. We are experiencing, it has been said before, there's a saying that says, I am not seeing the world as it is. I am seeing the world as I am. So if you are someone who is full of psychological noise, the world you will perceive will seem very, very noisy. If you're someone who's full of love, the world you'll see and the way you'll meet beings will be full of love also. You see, the reading is not out there. Like I'm looking at my hand is not looking at me. And when I see the hand, it's there, but where I experience it is inside myself. So the world is shaped through our interpretation and through our vision, our projections and so on, our interpretations. All of this colors the way in which we experience life. So that's why I say, from that perspective, it is not a truth. And so people say, well, my truth and your truth. But these are just very relative things. When we speak of truth, we're talking about something much more fundamental than that. Something which is consistent and unavoidable in every single being. That's what we speak.
What are some of the tangible effects and consequences of the journey? Like when you get to discovering that I, when you finally understand that I, that consciousness, what are some of the ways that life is different? What are some of the things that change? What do people have to look forward to?
Most of the change happen in you. You see? Because sometimes the people, when the change has occurred, when the realization happens in them, They say, wow, the life is so fantastic and it's so beautiful and everything is working so well. And I think of somebody when they show up or what, say, it's amazing. But it was always like that. It has always been like that. It's just that it's your turn to see it like that. But it has always been like that. But we say, because you are new to it now, I say, oh my God, it started then. But it is timelessly like that. So also, all anxieties and such things like depression and fears, they go. Your heart becomes very quiet, very peaceful. You discover a happiness that doesn't go away. You become clear, so clear inside that you cannot come to the end of you. You know this. You don't believe this now. You know it. I don't know how to tell you, you know it. You just know it. Just like if you fall in love, you don't have to read a book about love or read a dictionary. You know it is love. You don't need someone else's opinion about it. In the same way, we know inside that what is here is beyond merely the body-mind expression. You just know it. And what will change? The way in which you relate to existence, to other beings, that will change. If it was not already beautiful, it will become more beautiful, more wise, more open. You'll feel more gratitude in your heart for life and for the senses and for everything, for the use of a mind and the powers to discern, and it will be just incomparably beautiful.
What do people need to What do people need to learn to find happiness?
They need to, first of all, recognize that they are not merely their bodies nor their thoughts. They need to know this thing. Not just believe it. Maybe believe it or maybe hear it, or sometimes you may meet someone whose presence exudes a natural conviction and response in you that is nothing intellectual, that is purely at the pulse, at an art level inside you, and triggers a flowering of a deeper understanding. It can happen very spontaneously, magically like that. But for many people, it starts in a very seemingly simple, coincidental kind of way, where they meet someone and maybe you're given a book or something, you start to read, and it triggers some reflections within yourself, and you begin to ponder on something, and then the next thing you happen is that you meet someone and it seems, oh my gosh, I was just reading about this book and you know, it's written by you or your cousin, or you know, it seems like these beautiful coincidences are happening. But what is happening is that as you come more and more towards synchronicity internally, the world begins to reflect its harmony to you, and you begin to recognize it. And as you recognize it, you feel, oh my God, but how is it possible? I mean, it's, you know, I didn't make this up, it just happened like this. And so you begin to enjoy the wonder of life and the amazing, you know, spontaneity and grace and benevolence of the existence. And so these are very, very attractive for the intelligent being. Yeah.
So this is actually a question for myself. What for people that are creative? I mean, everyone is seeking creative expression. Everyone wants to act, but is there a way to work hard without being addicted to it, or what's the way to approach work and ambition and entrepreneurial ventures and creativity? Because I kind of bunch all those together in a way. So is there a way, how do I frame the question? Because we find peace through stillness, but yet we're constantly striving to create. So is there a balance? Is there a mindset? Is it action without expectation?
I am hoping that in us talking like this, and those whoever would listen will feel a sense of openness towards that inner journey. Even the openness is already a step. And then you start to be pulled in by some force to bring you more closely. I am mentioning this again because rather than giving lots of little techniques about how to do things, because we are very much a how-to-do species, we begin to discover our beingness is already containing so much, like everything much. And there's nothing more creative, actually, than that source place inside ourselves. It creates all of this, all of these things, all these colors. It didn't spare. It didn't say, oh, there's too much yellow. No. It creates all this beauty. Out of its silence, it comes out of it. And yet, and this is the direction to go, because the other, if we are going only on the basis of being a person and becoming famous and doing all these things, it is wrought with effort and struggle and competitiveness and, need and this kind of, and it's not beautiful at that level. You want to create something beautiful. And where's beautiful? How is something beautiful created? Out of beautiful being. Also, no? Now, I know that sometimes people are experiencing very deep and traumatic feelings, and out of this deep traumatic and inner environment, they produce beautiful things also. You see, like this. So we cannot limit it and just say, only when you're feeling beautiful, you make beautiful things. Creativity is not about making things. In fact, creativity is intelligent existence, is being creative. When you meet someone and you meet them in spontaneity, that is highly creative, actually. When you're open, that is very creative, because you have not come with an intention. Your intention is not so fixed. You come with the openness to see what is the possibilities, what may happen. This is the most exciting one. You see, if we have just intention, I want to do and do and do, in a way your room is closed. But if you come and you explore and you see where it's going and you enjoy also, and enjoying, you feel actually a natural gratitude for life. You're praising, your work is praising, your attitude is praising life, in fact. This is beautiful creativity.
It's hard because the inspiration comes from a deep sense of intuition. It's definitely something beyond thought. It's a feeling.
Yeah.
But then society teaches us to keep chasing, keep pushing, and how do we know whether that suffering and that pain is part of the process, or if that suffering and pain is just me trying to be famous?
Yes, it is part of a process. It can produce, a certain skill, but it rarely produces brilliance. Often the brilliance, it's so humble because it comes out of emptiness. And when something comes out of emptiness, you cannot take a claim for it. This is the amazing thing, that you come to a certain place where you go beyond self-control. You come into total beingness, and from there it's like the universe is dancing through this body. You see, now we'd like to be able to bottle that and say, yes, this is what I want to hold and turn on the tap at will. But what it shows you is that when you are in attunement or synchronicity with the beingness, then this is your natural day, what may be for someone a spark is your continuous and timeless being. For someone it's only a spark, a little spark, because mostly we are living with this notion that, yes, I do this and do that, and then somehow a spark comes, and it's like you want to give everything for this spark, because it is totally effortless, and also it is without identity. It is totally divine. Is this divine spark we want, isn't it?
Because a very small percentage of this planet ever feels that divine spark.
Yes.
Is it, or maybe a very small percentage of people act on that divine spark? What prevents other people from the calling, from answering the call, that divine spark? Is it just fear, or what is it?
Ignorance, arrogance, too much desire, too much attachment, and being attached to your attachments. All this brings in a kind of blindness, a kind of heaviness. That you work, but you strain and struggle and toil and labor. Actually, that divine spark is you, but you don't know it. Every day we are experiencing, but we're not conscious of it. We're not aware of it. We only know it as a kind of blast, like, whoa, and whoa. And so, because what's happening, you just can't say, no, I can't say, oh. How can you explain such joy or such bliss? You see?
It's a really good way of looking at it.
Yeah.
I think I've actually covered all of the bases that I wanted to cover. Do you want to add anything, like, for people that have never meditated, for people that are so conditioned?
Yes, I want to show them something.
Yes.
I want to show them something simple that anyone can do. No? I want to show you a simple way to get back in harmony with yourself. Now, everybody feels the sense I am, just the feeling I am. You know of your existence, you know you exist, okay? So this feeling I exist, or the sense I am, when you say I, that's what it really refers to. So I would ask them, just spend 7 minutes or so. Just sit quietly for a little bit and just feel the sense of beingness, the sense I am, the sense is there. There's no story in it. There's no history. It's not important that you think of yourself as a man or a woman or that you are a meditator. None of these things are important. Everyone can do it. So just a feeling of beingness. Once you are aware of how simple it is, just a feeling of being. Like if you had nothing to do, nothing to become, nothing to change, nothing to fix, nothing at all, just you're here. And no thought about what you're doing. That simple empty space, just be there. It's just a feeling that you know you exist. It's like a quality of presence. Just stay in that feeling of presence and don't allow it to connect up with any thought or intention or any form. Just keep it by itself. Leave it there. Now, some thoughts are going to come and some habits to go and to start to think about sending an email or something. But if they come, you're not to fight with them. Simply be aware of them, but just stay as a feeling I am. The feeling I am is just like a space that if you do anything in a space, it doesn't stay. If I draw a face in a space, it doesn't stay. So they just appear and they disappear. But you stay only as that space, just that awareness space. In the beginning, it might become very difficult, it might feel very difficult to do, but persist. Do 7 minutes, okay? And maybe even if it feels, wow, that was so tiring, because in the beginning it can feel tiring because you're trying to you're not trying to become something, you're trying to prevent somebody from taking your attention away, the mind. So you just stay like this and you do it again when you want, and gradually you'll be able to stay even though thoughts and noise come and say, oh my God, there's even more noise than before is coming. But don't give up. And after a short time, you're going to discover something very, very beautiful. You're going to discover a silence in yourself, a peace, a sense of vastness. And you're going to become so happy, so happy. And just keep on staying in this space whenever you want. 7 minutes minimum. Just sit there like this. And you can do this before you go to bed in the night, but not when you're tired. Or in the morning. It's nice when you get up, just sit for a few minutes and just clarify your mind, just keep it clean, and then go about your business, what you want to do. Just do this and keep it going for like maybe a week or 2 weeks is good, and see what, and then you may write to me and tell me if your life has changed or not. This would be something that is not to do with any particular religion or nothing. No, anybody can do it. The atheist can do it, the believer can do it, the karma yogi can do it, the Gyan yogi can do it, Bhakti yoga can do it, all that, anybody. People don't know nothing about yoga, meditation, religion, nothing at all. They can do this. And it will bring you to the same place. It's the most beautiful self-discovery. Just that. Just nothing. No special terms, no special, so impressive spiritual terminology. Just stay in the feeling of being. And when thoughts come to take your attention like that, just stay. Learn to ignore them. At first it's going to be very difficult. It's like the worst are going to come. They're going to create fears in the mind, but you only have to stay. That's that feeling. Then after your 7 minutes, you get up and you go about do your thing. Yeah. And then if somebody wants to say something, maybe they write to you or something like this, Luke, and whatever, and tell you about this and what happened in their life. Because I think it will touch on all the things that we talked about today. It will touch on all those things. It will satisfy all those questions in them.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Sri Lord Shiva Bhagavate Sri Ma Durga Bhagavate Sri Hare Rama Bhagavate Om Shri Hare 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 Om Shri Hare Hare Shri Hare Krishna Bhagavate Shri Siddhartha Bhagavate